Welcome to the CCT User Interface Overview video. The literature locations for CCT can be found under the Product Literature internal site on the Employee Portal and look under the System Release link. Also in Quicklette, you can find information under Metasys, Software, Tools, and then Controller Configuration Tool. In these locations, you will find information on the CCT installation instructions, as well as the enumeration sets technical bulletin. Help is also found there in a PDF file format for all detailed information on CCT, which is the same as found in online help. The objectives of this video is to focus on the key CCT interface enhancements. And these would include in the control view, where the state table is found, applications and logic navigation tabs, as well as the miscellaneous input and output points. In the logic view, we'll take a look at the tree selection for logic modules and application logic view, as well as the zoom and pan, which are retained during your CCT session, as well as a variety of enhancements throughout CCT. Let's now take a look at these new capabilities. I have preloaded CCT with a fan coil application, so let's take a look at this control view and see what's new. First of all, you may notice that there's the columns that are now slidable, so you can move them left or right. And the columns headings are going to be fixed. So if I scroll up and down, you can see the column heading remains stable. Also notice on the left side, there's tabs, one called Application, which displays this control view, as well as the Logic tab, where when I click on it, it opens up the logic views. And on the left side is the tree for all of the logic modules, as well as the view application logic. We'll come back to this logic tab a little bit later. So I'll go back to the application tab to display the control view. By looking at this, you may also notice in the left side there's a group here called miscellaneous, which are miscellaneous inputs. And way on the right side, you'll also notice that there's a new miscellaneous outputs. These points, miscellaneous points, are going to be used by the PID output override feature, which will be discussed in a later video. You'll also notice that there's a new network input point called tuning reset. This is going to be used by the PID to reset its tuning parameters. Also will be covered in a different video. Editing is now visually easier. So if I come into the Parameters tab and select the Edit button, you'll notice that the editable fields have a white background, whereas the other background is more of a lighter gray color. You'll also notice that the state table is missing. There used to be a column here called State Selection. It is now a right-click on the State Generation header and select State Selection, and that's where you can find the state table, the connections, and the details view for the state table. I'll select the state table now and view it. Changes that were made here are primarily in the first column. This is the State Generation Module column, which also has a scroll feature. So when I scroll down and I let go of the mouse, the output control modules then will line up properly. So not only can we scroll left and right, but I can also scroll the output control modules and they'll line up with the State Generation modules. If I adjust my window here to get a scroll bar for left and right, So you can see now that the state generation module column remains stationary as you scroll left or right with the output control modules. Let's go to this logic view again and see what's new in there. So I select the logic tab, and if you notice on the left side now there's a tree identifying all of the modules that have logic. For example, if I look under output control, here's my proportional cooling control. When I clicked on that, the logic for that logic module shows up on the right side, and the palette for selecting and editing these logic views are now in the lower left-hand corner. And if I select the heating control module, I'm now in the heating logic. Now let's zoom into this a little bit, because there's also a change in how the blocks are identified. If you notice, the names of the blocks are now fully described for the individual block. And notice how I zoomed in. So if I go back to the cooling control module, what we're going to see is that the zoom is retained during this session of CCT. So I'll go back to heating again, and I'm back into that zoomed mode. Another new feature is that when you go into the simulation, the values for the simulation are going to be retained while you're looking at the logic view itself. So I went into simulation, and there are the values that are coming in during simulation. If I stop simulation, the values disappear. So those are some of the new features that are in the logic view. I'll go back to the application control view and see what's new under tools. In the tools menu, the box flow test has been improved, where it now will use any of the connection types, whether it's Zigbee or pass-through with Ethernet or Bluetooth. Under wireless, the ZFR configuration tool is still present, but what happened is they've added the option under Programs, Johnson Controls, Metasys. The ZCT, the ZFR configuration tool, is also selectable from here instead of going into the CCT program itself. Also under Tools, Preferences, Localization. If you've installed different languages, then this Preferences Localization will allow you to flip between languages while inside CCT. Exceptions to that would be the units of measurement. They'll remain the same as the original language that you use to create your file. Other enhancements for CCT User Interface is that when you're in the controller information or the device discovery table for a load procedure, the devices now are sortable. So the column that maintains the device addresses, you can sort them. There's also, in the print feature, the ability to identify any duplicate names that you may have in your program. So here's a new option in print called duplicate names. So if you have any objects or any points that are the same name, they will be identified here. Another new feature is the details view. The tab function will work. So I'll view details of this proportional cooling module. I'll select the edit button, and I'll put my cursor here under heating control. Well, now if I select the tab button, it moves through my details view one field at a time. So I'll cancel that. And also, there's support now for Microsoft Vista operating system. So that concludes the details of the key features for the interface overview. And one thing to keep in mind is that the literature describes all of these new features as well as an online help.